Israel has shipped in more humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip than literally any army to in a population that supports the enemy in literally all of human history. They've been shipping in about 4,400 calories per day per person into the Gaza Strip in the middle of a war in which the enemy is holding actual Israeli hostages underground who, as we've seen from some of the pictures, are actually starving. Again, none of this is to claim that the war is pretty or meticulous or anodyne, because it isn't. It's really, really, really ugly.
Ben Shapiro versus Charlemagne the God live. Charlemagne the God is a radio host show. I've actually been watching his stuff for a very long time. I love him. He had on Ben Shapiro to talk about his new book. And we're also going to take a clip about Ben being, he gets addressed about the situation with Candace Owens live, about what it was like firing her, and some more details about that. Stay tuned. I'm the other Barak, coming to you live and direct here from the Holy Land in Israel. 80% of you are not subscribed to this channel. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to change that. We put out 3 to 4 videos a day on this channel. Press that subscribe button and press that bell icon so that you don't miss out on any of this action. We also have a free newsletter in the link below for the video description. Submit your email address. You get access to information about me, sharing more about my personal and private life that I don't share here on YouTube, new endeavors and everything. It comes right to your inbox. Let's get into the first video.
Interesting. I want to go back to your book in a second, but I'm glad you said that, because you don't think what's happening in Gaza is a genocide.
Correct.
Okay, but the world's leading association of genocide scholars has declared that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza based off the pure definition of...
Well, it's not actually, if you read their actual study, it's not based on the quote-unquote pure definition of genocide. They don't actually even define genocide in the document. And they basically went out to their membership, but they didn't go out to the entire membership. They went out to a generic membership. It is very easy to join the International Association of Genocide Scholars. In fact, there were several people yesterday who just signed up and were immediately admitted, even though they have no actual background in genocide. The question is not whether some sort of coterie of people who call themselves experts in an issue are quote-unquote experts on the issue. The question is whether the definition is met. The definition of genocide is not met in Gaza by any stretch of the imagination, and you can cite to me, a group that I hadn't heard of until 2 seconds ago, and nobody had heard of until 2 seconds ago, that voted in a particular way. That doesn't make a difference definitionally.
So what is a genocide to you?
A genocide is the attempt to forcibly destroy an entire population, which is not what has happened.
So it's not the attacks on like the personal facilities needed for like survival, like healthcare and educational institutions?
Well, again, Israel has shipped in more humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip than literally any army to in a population that supports the enemy in literally all of human history. They've been shipping in about 4,400 calories per day per person into the Gaza Strip in the middle of a war in which the enemy is holding actual Israeli hostages underground who, as we've seen from some of the pictures, are actually starving. Again, none of this is to claim that the war is pretty or meticulous or anodyne, because it isn't. It's really, really, really ugly. But over the course of this war, about 3% of the Gazan population has been killed or wounded. If you're going to look at an actual genocide, obviously the prototypical case being the Holocaust, you're looking at 50% of the entire Jewish population in Europe destroyed. If you're looking at other attempted genocides, say the genocides in Rwanda, you're talking about extraordinarily high percentages of the population that are wiped out. You certainly are not seeing procedures that require 4 layers of actual legal authority in order to do a drone strike. I've actually seen the tape of them doing this in Israel. They actually, if they spot from the air a terrorist who's going into a particular civilian area, you have to take like a full minute where the pilot on the drone calls up the legal authority, who then calls up the higher legal authority to get clearance for the actual drone strike, and they will call off the drone strike if they believe that the military target is too costly in terms of civilian casualties. I mean, Hamas knows this, which is why they're hiding among civilians. In fact, the best proof that this is not, in fact, a purposeful genocide is the fact that Hamas is hiding behind civilians. The reason you hide behind civilians is because you know your enemy doesn't want to kill civilians. Right? If you believe that your enemy doesn't care about killing civilians, you wouldn't hide among civilians. That wouldn't be a defense mechanism.
Do you think Israel needs a regime change?
Israel's a democracy. They've had, I think, 5 elections in the last 4 years. There probably will be election again in March. I do not think that Israel would be conducting this war very differently if there were somebody else in power. And I actually know every Israeli prime minister for the last 10 years, including the ones who are on the opposite side. People like Yair Lapid, who's on the opposite side, or Naftali Bennett, who's on the opposite side.
Before we get into the video with, with Candace Owens, you have it right there. And I'm actually really glad that Charlemagne raised this conversation the way that he did, because he didn't bring it up in a way where he's like, what is your opinion? And he asks the question to hear his opinion, because he's looking for the answer that is reflective of his opinion. So when somebody says, so what about the genocide in Gaza? that's immediately saying to somebody that you're asking it about who doesn't necessarily agree that you think there's a genocide, and that your framing of the question means that they have to respond to it while them also automatically acknowledging that it's a genocide. Instead, he said, according to X, Y, and Z, it's a genocide. Ben says why it's not, and then he says, what's the definition? This gives Ben an opportunity. This is how critical thinking conversations are ongoing. And what Ben said is just factually true. It's categorically true. Like only 2 to 3%, according, by the way, to the numbers given from the Gaza Health Ministry, which again is Hamas. Let's call it 60,000 people, which is included in that number are Hamas terrorists. So let's just split it half and half, because Israel estimates to have killed about 25 to 30,000 of them so far. So 30,000. What is the percent? 30,000 of 2.1 million people. By the way, that is not me saying it's okay. War is ugly, just like Ben said. Categorically, that does not show genocidal intent. And we can go into this over and over and over and over. I want to go into, I want to go into the video here. So Ben Shapiro gets asked about firing Candace Owens and if he's a Jewish propaganda machine. Here is the video on the Breakfast Club.
But Candace Owens, she was here when she said that you couldn't fire her from Daily Wire. Like that would happen here on the Breakfast Club. So, and I saw everything that happened after, and you guys said that you guys were going separate ways. She said she was finally free. Did she quit because you told her to quit, or was she fired?
Really get into this. I mean, so like for legal reasons, I will say that it's talking openly about it.
I apologize because my internet isn't the best today, so I know it's a little bit blurry. I will just refresh the page quickly and see if we can get the internet to be a little bit better.
Here when she said that
Let's try this again.
You guys said that you guys were going separate ways. She said she was finally free. Did she quit because you told her to quit, or was she fired?
Really get into this. I mean, so like for legal reasons, I will say that it's talking openly about this is kind of a problem. I will say that Candace and I have obviously quite significant political disagreements, and as the founder of a company that is dedicated to certain propositions, we have many people who I would not hire, and I would not hire Candace Owens today.
Well, what about free speech? My boy Andrew Schultz, he said that he said if you're not about free speech when you fired Candace, then you are just a propaganda machine for Israel.
Oh, well, with all respect to Andrew Schultz, that's a dumbass thing to say, and the reason that's a dumbass thing to say is because I've noticed that Candace is doing quite well for herself.
She is,
right, and so I've not called for her to be deplatformed. I've not called for her to be prosecuted. I am not under no obligation to pay people from my pocketbook who are espousing beliefs that I find antithetical to my own. You don't have to hire you don't have to hire Nick Fuentes or David Duke to come be a host at the Breakfast Club. That is not a violation of free speech.
It's true.
There's been the word anti-Semite has been thrown around Candace Owens a lot. Do you feel like she's anti-Semitic?
I will say that some of the things that she says would, to me, certainly fall in that category. I try not to use that terminology, and the reason I try not to use that terminology is I don't think that it's useful. I think that the term has been emptied of sort of all of its content in the same way that Americans are now used to, I think, everyone being called racist, and so they stopped actually paying attention to racism in many ways, which is, I think, quite bad. I want to avoid doing the same thing here.
So what's the solution, Ben? When you talk about inequality and civic inclusion, what's the solution? We've talked about a lot. Are we just selling books? Are we just promoting podcasts?
So that is the clip with Ben talking about Candace. Unfortunately, based on her decision, his decision, their decision, whatever it is, he actually is legally not supposed to and allowed to talk about this. I also really like his answer about the fact of how he addresses anti-Semitism and being anti-Semitic in terms of labeling other people. I also see people just say like Dan Bilzerian's anti-Semitic, Candace Owens is anti-Semitic, Tucker Carlson's anti-Semitic, Mohammed Hijab is anti-Semitic. All these people are anti-Semitic. When they just immediately say something that goes against Israel or goes against Jews. Now, when we say she's a Nazi, he's a Nazi, like we have to really think about what a Nazi is. Nazis took mass populations of Jewish and non-Jewish and disabled peoples and fully controlled where they went to eventually lead them down to a dead end of some sort, to just annihilate them. Mass executions inside of a ditch that they dig in an open field, telling them they're going to go get clean showers downstairs in gas chambers. That's starving them intentionally. That's what a Nazi was. And a Nazi's job every single day was to wake up and to repeat that over and over and over. Kind of like fulfilling some sort of a prophecy. I don't think Candace is a Nazi. I don't think Tucker Carlson is a Nazi. I don't think Jake Shields, Jake could be a Nazi, but I don't think that it's so easy for us to just, because somebody says something against the state of Israel or what comes across as anti-Semitic on the internet from the way that they phrase it, does it really mean that they would put on a uniform if they could get away with it for a couple years and mass annihilate Jewish people? I don't think Candace Owens would do that. And one of the reasons I don't think she would do that specifically is because Candace did work for Ben for a while. Ben, you can see, wears a kippah. He's a Orthodox Jew. If she was a Nazi, she would have never worked or wanted to work or enjoyed working with him. And you can ask and see, she did have times where she was very much a happy team member at The Wire with the Ben Shapiro show and his company. And so he does raise a good point, though, because she's doing very well for herself. And so anybody that's chosen and decided to talk about the 7th of October since then, Israel, Palestine, you know, I've been raising this for a long time. It's like, why now? Why suddenly are all these A-list celebrities talking about Israel and Palestine if all of them, in their pursuit of talking about this publicly with their full conviction that this hasn't been happening just since the 7th of October, but instead it's been happening since 1948. Okay, where were you then in between? The timelines don't make sense for me, because if suddenly just now you've decided to say that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is this big of an issue, and you've chosen to completely shift or even walk away from your previous career to doing this, Miss Rachel's almost on her way fully in doing that. Miss Rachel, she's also somebody who says this didn't happen in a vacuum. It wasn't just October 7th. Where were you in 2022, 2020, COVID, 2019, when I graduated college in 2018, when I was in New York, 2016, when I was a high school grad, 2013, when I was a middle school grad, 2009, when I lived in Israel, early 2000s, because that's in between 1948 to October 7th. Where was your platform then? Does it really matter enough for you? I don't think so. I think there's a much bigger question to be addressed here. Same with the Candace Owens. These people are doing really fucking well for themselves, talking about something that they've been addressed and given enough information about from one lens to validate why this wasn't a vacuum event. October 7th didn't just happen in a vacuum. It's been happening for a long time. So my question still remains, why is it so important for you now? You've had access to information about Israel-Palestine way before the 7th of October. That's a question they can't answer. None of them can answer it. Thank you so much for all your support. Links in the description to support this channel. Every single contribution really helps. The newsletter is there. Patreon is there. Buy me a coffee. PayPal. X is actually going really well for us right now. So follow us on X. We can have some really, really cool conversations. Here's a note from me. Here are 4 ways you can help us grow if you believe in our mission. On Buy Me a Coffee and PayPal, you can directly contribute to helping this message grow and reach more people across the world. If you want to join the inner circle, join our Patreon with different tiers, and of course, our Discord community, which is free with people from all across the world. The links to every single one are in the description. And last but not least, to the other Brock community, I love you. Ani ohev otchem. I'll see you guys next time.